going to be reading from the ESV, 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 6 through 9. In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold, that perishes though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Though you have not seen him, you love him. Though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory, obtaining the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls.
Wow. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to tell you for us again, thank you so much for spending a Saturday with us here at Weber Road. We women of Weber Road are so glad you're here. Now, the fact that I could walk up here today was because the result of many things. And why is that, you ask? Being a Southern girl is a lot of pressure from the generation in which I came. We had to learn how to walk right, no matter what, to look right, to always behave and be polite. But they had one problem. I was duck-footed, and that is a shame upon the people. About 8 years old, when you're from my culture, at the time I was of the age, you, about 8 years old, get some trainer heels for Easter. They were about this big. And they said, all right, we're going to break in the Easter shoes, and you're going to walk down grandmother's hall. And so I did. And the looks of horror on my mother and my grandmother's face, I wasn't sure what happened, but they said, Michelle, and that's how they say my name. You're duck-footed. And I said, I don't know what that means. Well, it was because I turned my feet outward, if you don't know, and I walked kind of like that. And there's two disgraces that can come upon the family at that point in time, and one is duck-footed and the other is flat-footed. I have a daughter with both of those, and she's not a disgrace. So we had to practice for an hour walking. I'm going to show you. I'm going to step away for just a second. We had to walk like this and hold our head up, shoulders back. And I'm going to tell you, that was not easy, because I had no idea I was duck-footed. No one told me before that point. Why did they not tell me if it was such a shame? They seemed like they should have said something. But I had to be refined. And, because in case I get invited to Buckingham Palace or something, because that could happen for sure. I'm sure my invitation's just lost in the mail. So why am I telling you that story? I'm telling you because we go through a period of refinement. God refines us for the glory of his mission, not just Southern stuff. But the Latin root for refine is refinere, or something like that. It means to purify again. Biblical refinement is God shaping character, not just looking at your flawless appearance and your perfect lipstick, or chapstick for the crunchy sisters, that's okay too. It is the Holy Spirit through the Word sanding off our rough edges, which we have a lot of those, and polishing us to shine. We live in Corpus Christi, so y'all have probably seen this, where there's all these refineries. And this, if you weren't from here, it's really a shocking sight in the daytime. It's beautiful at night. And when I first came here, I was like, what is all that? And my husband was like, it's refineries. Well, refineries, what they do is they heat up various natural elements into a certain thing to make it this kind of thing and that kind of product and these other things. And y'all are all wearing products that are petroleum-based, trust me. And so this is what they do, they heat it up. So refining is heating it up. And now we're going to talk about something real controversial for just a moment. We're going to turn over to Luke 10, This little section of the Bible gets people in a fizz all the time. Luke 10:38-42, and it says, "And now they went on their way, and Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to him and said, 'Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me.'" How many of y'all had a sister like that? But the Lord answered and said, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled for many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary hath chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." Now, my grandmother's name is Martha, so I'm going to tell you that was another thing. I was raised by a Martha type, and her mother was a Martha type, and I think probably her mother was a Martha type. I am a Mary all day long, which causes great ire for the Marthas in the world. I do realize, do not worry, that there must be a balance at all times of Martha and Mary, but when you have a straight up Martha and you have a straight up Mary, it can be like that sometimes. But even with that, what we're learning is Martha was very important too. What she was doing was very important. In the Middle Eastern culture, when you go into someone's home, they are supposed to present you with a full tray or plate of food and all of the possible anticipated needs. She was following what was proper and polite. I don't think she walked up and down the hallway for an hour because she was duck-footed or anything, but she was really working on that. She was trying to be a good hostess, and she wasn't doing bad. She just was a little misfocused at that moment because Jesus, who they didn't know was going to be taken away. Maybe they did have an idea it was going to be soon, how long they had with him. So how many have been more of a Martha in their life? If you want to raise your hand, you can. You don't have to. That's strange. All the Marthas are right there. A couple here. And then Mary's, I'm going to just be honest. Okay. So I would like you, if you do journal, maybe write down some things that can help you refocus if you need to. And now we're going to read John 4. Not the whole book, but the woman at the well. Why is she important to us? Because she was somebody that a lot of people would have ignored. As a matter of fact, they were ignoring her. She was going to the wells during the day, during the hot part of the day, and it was really hot. Sorry. It was really hot because the women there regarded her as trash. They wouldn't go with her. She was alone. And on top of that, she was a Samaritan, so no. But Jesus meets her there, and he talks to her about living water. So let's do a little quick look here at verse 27. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Let's start with, I meant to mark a little higher than that. Let's go with verse 16. Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." And the woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying you have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you're with right now is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship?" Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship, but the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know. For salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is here, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." The woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. And when he comes, he will tell us all things. And Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he. Now, whoa. She was like, wait a minute. You're saying familiar things and you know everything about me? Something's up with this fellow. Well, it was. He was the Christ of all the world. And continuing on in 27, and just then his disciples came back and they were marveled that he was talking with a woman. But no one said, what do you seek, or why are you talking with her? So the woman left her water jar and went away into the town and said to the people, come see a man who told me all I ever did. Can this be the Christ? She had an important message to give. She was one of the first persons to declare that to people who would be acting all kinds of different ways to that. But she was chosen by him. And we already know that she had familiarity with a lot of men in the area. So maybe she was the perfect marketer there. And she kind of started the first door knocking campaign in Samaria. God refines us through relationships and not perfection. I have heard so many women just depressed and sad because they're trying to be Pinterest perfect, and it's just not an attainable thing. That's not even what God's asking us. He's asking us to keep on trying and try to go bring your will towards holy. But he didn't say perfect, and not once is Pinterest said in the entire Bible at all. As a matter of fact, I can tell you a story. One time I tried to cook beef Wellington for a church lunch. I had lofty ideas in my head. I had a little recipe book that they gave me at my wedding, and I was like, I'm going to do this beef Wellington. And I have watched chef shows, and they can't even get that right. I don't know what I was thinking. Or even just plain cookies one time. I'm trying to make plain cookies, and they just spread all over the tray. So I was distressed at how my cooking had come out. This was when I was 20, so it was a long, long time ago. But I had a sister tell me, she goes, listen, just bring grapes and cheese. And she said, that's what I always bring, because she was working and she had kids that were in diapers and, all the things that go with that. And she's like, I cannot cook stuff. I just bring the grapes and cheese. Now, legal disclaimer, I'm not trying to get in trouble with certain ladies here. I will bring whatever I'm told to bring. If you tell me to bring that, I'm bringing that. Or if we need to sign up for sandwiches, I'm bringing that. But if we're like, it's free for all, grapes and cheese. Now, let me tell you also about those church lunches. I had a relative I'm not going to name because she might watch this. But she's known for her potato salad. And one time we were at a congregation where we were new because we had moved from Atlanta down to Middle Georgia, Macon, Georgia area, if you know Georgia's map. And we had church lunch. This person brought their potato salad, and she was horrified because another lady had brought potato salad. Well, we were new there. That lady might have been the potato salad fairy for all we know, and she didn't know that, but it wasn't made right, and she just knew that it was a conspiracy of some sort to take her potato salad, crown away from her. That lady had no idea that my relative felt that way at all. And I have another relative who took the recipe from the first relative and makes it with like green olives or something like that. And of course that horrifies that relative too. So, we're all important. But let me teach you about refinement. Let me show you a little lesson I had to learn from a 4-year-old about refining. I had one way of thinking and she had another. My oldest was what we would call a child with a spirit of determination. Hard-headed. That was my oldest one. Awful. I used to have to carry her out of church service probably 8 times just to get through. And she'd wave at people over my shoulder like that. Luckily now she behaves very well and is a preacher's wife, so she figured it out. But one time when she was about 3 or 4, I was giving her a bath, her wiggly self, and she decided she was trying to lick the soap. Here's a little soap. She was trying to lick that soap. And I said, no, don't do that. You're going to have a bad taste in your mouth. Don't do that. And she was determined to do it. So I was like, maybe I'm just going to let her lick that soap and let her get a good taste of it so she won't ever do that again. So she licked the soap. Just a couple minutes later, she was gagging and everything. But a few minutes later, she noticed the other bar of soap in the bathtub. And her father's bar, and she decided to lick that one too. Because they are different. I mean, you know. And she licked that one too and found out it was the same. But it was a different color, y'all. It was a different color, so probably a different flavor. I don't know. I haven't licked soap. But oftentimes, that I know of, I might need to call my mama. But oftentimes, we are like that to God. We're down here licking soap, doing this stuff that we should not. And he's going, I told you not to lick that soap. But we're steady doing it. But look at how Jesus can refine, how he refined in Mark 5. The woman with the issue of blood for 12 years. And I don't want to get into medical stuff here, but I bet some of us have experienced some of this here that she had, and it was clear she was having some issues with her reproductive area. Starting in 25. And there was a woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years, who had suffered much and went under many physicians, and had spent all she had, and was no better than when but rather grew worse. And she had heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, if I even touch his garment, I will be made well. And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt that her body had been healed of the disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone from him, immediately turned about the crowd and said, who touched my garments? And the disciples said, you see the crowd pressing around you, and you say, who touched me? And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what she had done and what had happened to her, she came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your diseases. Isn't that what we need to do? We need to fall right down in front of him and tell him the whole truth. Her healing was spiritual and physical at the same time. And oftentimes we don't get that answer. We keep licking soaps, which is not what we're supposed to do, and trying to find that answer, we go to the wrong sources. We look at the wrong people's opinions, and we don't realize where we need to be turning us into this book here. And also, if you have trouble reading the Bible, if you do, just turn to James or Proverbs. Start there. Just start there. You don't have to know everything, but you will increase in knowledge. But God refines us through what we fear. I think a lot of us could say, if they were told if you had told me when I was learning how not to walk duck-footed anymore, all the things that would happen in my life, I would be terrified to live it. And we all have things that have happened that are terrifying in one way or another to us. And some of us have had the most horrible things. But the refining process is heat and trials, meltdowns, scrubbing, shining. In Proverbs 17:3, it says, the crucible is for silver, and the furnace is for gold, and the Lord tests hearts. Y'all ever take chemistry and watch magnesium ribbon burn? Anybody seen that before? No? Okay. Well, in chemistry, there's this little crucible. It's a little porcelain dish that's able to take a seriously high heat, and magnesium ribbon looks like a piece of a paper clip or something, flattened out. And that stuff burns a white hot flame. You are not even supposed to look at it directly because, your corneas or I don't know. But that sometimes it turns into a different chemical, and it's very important. So those things happen to us too. Sometimes we do burn a white hot flame when we go down in flames. and we have a meltdown. And I ask if you do journal to submit to his refining and talk about your prayer life. Ask yourself some questions. Here's a little checklist. This is a funny one. Have you ever hosted a baby shower and served whatever Google told you to serve? The first search, don't even try to refine the search. After a furious search of good stuff, you put in Google, good stuff that people will eat to make for a church dinner and ingredients at the H-E-B. That's what I put when I'm not bringing grapes and cheese. And she said, and have you ever said, bless your heart, while trying to stay spiritual? And I'm going to take a moment there. Okay, this is a real story, and I'm going to name the relative this time. My mama one day called me up, and they still living back in Georgia and everything. And she goes, I am so mad. And I said, why are you mad? Did I do it? My sister did it, I'm sure. I mean, I was a grown adult by now. And she said, those comedians have told our secret phrase to the world, and now how are we going to kind of call people like bless your heart? It's like a name, without them understanding it. What do we have left? And I'm like, I don't know, but let me give you a quick guide. Bless your heart, that is sincere, a little head tilt. Bless her heart, that is not really sincere. And then bless your heart, that is, wow, you have just told me something right there. And if we ever say, well, look at you, that's kind of like, what is that outfit that you are wearing right now? That ain't the nicest way to behave, but I don't advocate that. Let me just make sure everybody understands that. Try to stay spiritual. Have you ever served and smiled while serving it and tried to just pray, Lord, please fix them or I'm going to have to take them? Have you ever worked stop that right now into the invitation song? I have done that. Have you prayed with your eyes open just to correct that one little toddler you got, or that teenager, or your husband perhaps? I don't know. Whoever needs it. And you can walk to the Lord and laugh, but He is still refining us. It is a lifelong process. It's not something that's going to happen real quick like. You may have to walk for an hour. Philippians 1:6 tells us, and I am sure of this, that He who began a good work in you, will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. You may wobble, you may be duck-footed, you may have to train yourself on your trainer heels. But Martha learned to sit, Mary learned to stay, and the Samaritan woman learned how to run. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be present, available, and surrendered to God. Now we're going to do a tiny assessment, just a real quick one. I like to work in empirical data into things sometimes. Here's a spiritual checklist, just a little quick one. And of course, in 2 Corinthians 13:5, it says, examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith, test yourselves. So sometimes we need to think about stuff. Are you letting God refine you even when it's uncomfortable? Do I respond to hard seasons with trust or run in panic? Am I teachable? I'm going to stop right here for a minute. Teachable. I think it was mentioned I was an HR professional. One of the worst kinds of employees are those that are unteachable. You can help somebody who comes dragging in, they got half their purse open, hanging out, walking in, and maybe they don't know their job so well. You can fix that, but you cannot fix somebody if they're unteachable. And so we, as students of God, should be teachable, even if it is very hard. Do I ask God in prayer, what do I need to look for? Are you teaching me? Please teach me. Have you ever had a time in your life where you're praying, I don't know, Lord, I don't know. And you just kind of keep repeating that? If you haven't, it may be on the way, so be prepared. Remember some crazy woman from Georgia telling you that might happen. Are you actively seeking to grow in faith, patience, and humility? Actively seeking God at all? Or are you just kind of not looking up from the dog bowl and just having your day every day for years and never examining whether you're bringing it back to the center? So I encourage you to do those things. And the second one might be, are you obeying God even when it's super hard? Or are you running like Jonah, hoping to get swallowed up by a fish? When God asks something of me, do I obey quickly? Do I delay and debate and distract myself with small things? Am I faithful even in the small things when no one else sees it? That's the main sign there. Am I worried about pleasing people or pleasing God? Do I trust in God's plan even when it doesn't make any sense to me? It don't have to make sense to us. It is His plan. We could not, our minds are finite. We cannot possibly understand the larger picture. Have any of you been to like an art exhibit and seen Monet or any of the Impressionists at all? Well, one time this is the story about how I accidentally went to Mardi Gras and it wasn't my fault. My preacher uncle and his wife, we were going to go visit the Monet exhibit at the NOMA that was on loan from the Louvre, and I was so excited. And so, because Monet at the time was my favorite. And we went and we're looking at the pictures and so many other things, and I'm like, wow, that is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. And my uncle stood there and he said, it looks like he had cataracts when he did that. In front of a tour group who was being lectured by an art professor, he said this. And then the professor turned to him and said, well, at this time in Monet's life, he did have cataracts. And I was like, where can I go right now? Because I'm dying. And plus I was at the age of like, ew, everything's so embarrassing. Ew, why'd you say that? He said it. He was like that. And then it happened to be Mardi Gras at the same time. I went to a day parade and I was like, that was not for me, okay? I did not know. Talk about a crowd pressing on you too. You're leaning up against a thing thinking you're going to suffocate. But sometimes life takes us to places unexpectedly and for reasons we don't understand. But my main point with seeing Monet was if you do look up close at the paintings, it looks like he had cataracts when he did that. But if you step away, you can see. And God has that view of whatever is going on for you in this life. He has the step away version, not the, looks like she had cataracts when she did that. So I encourage you to understand that God has the greater view, that He has the better plan, and we need to stop licking different kinds of soap and wobbling around with our own idea of how we're going to fix it. How am I doing on time? How am I doing on time? Time? Okay. Sorry. So let me just encourage you. Let's let Him refine us. Let the Master, who is the ultimate refiner, refine us. Because if we don't let Him, then we're outside of what we need to be doing. We need to be refined. It's just like if you have a little toddler waving at everybody over your shoulder in church, they're probably not real obedient, are they? I can tell you she wasn't. And her son is so much more nice to her than she was to me. I'm so jealous of that. But when he does do something, I go, you're getting that back. And she goes, Mama. Like, yes, you are. So thank y'all for listening to this particular lesson. I'm so glad y'all are here. We at Weber Road have been working on this for a while. And also, it's hard to say we at Weber Road, so just know that. And we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you. And now we have Miss Nadine is going to offer another song for us.